What is one resource you had access to when you were young you regret not taking full advantage of?
I would have to say growing friendships in St. Martin, and keeping them. It was very difficult growing up because of my, switching schools, my upbringing being English, color of skin, and I don't know, maybe I was just like a socially different person back then, but I never kept friendships that well from St. Martin. So I don't have lots of ties to St. Martin anymore.
I think for me, my 4 years in college as a time in my life, I'd probably relive. Or not relive. There were resources there I didn't use as much as I wanted to, because on my way to college, there was the pressure in high school. You got to get you got to get the grades. You got to, I remember the whole academic applied thing. There was like academic applied thing in school.
Academic and applied.
So I remember you got to get academic and you got to get good grade. You got to get good grade. You got to get extracurricular. I mean, what are you doing? You're not doing extracurriculars. You're freaking feeding the poor.
Yeah.
So not like I didn't like doing these things. I was incredibly active in my church, and I remember that grade 12 year. My grade 12 year was the easiest year of high school of my entire life. Because I knew I was going, I think I'd gotten it. How do they do applications? Like I knew I was going to school. I'm like, my grade 11 grades are amazing. I'll be fine.
Yeah.
My grade 12 year was the first year I had a spare. So like I wasn't even at school all day. I was going to Pizza Hut. They used to have like a buffet.
Yeah.
Your way around the school, all the teachers. It was the most comfortable I'd felt in an environment because I know this place. I know it so well. I feel in no danger because I'm tall, I'm big, I'm strong. The bigger and stronger guys are my friends. This is gonna be great. Then I got to college and I was very much focused on a new identity when I got to school. Like I was very excited to be like, okay, now I become a person. I'm outside of my parents. I will become me now. That lasted a year and a half. And then I immediately started thinking I got to make money. I wasn't a student. I had my friends, my first year, so I went to York. York has a huge library. Like infinite, thousands of years worth of, and I love reading now, thousands of years worth of concept history. In my total 4 years there, I lived on campus for 2 years. I probably spent in total 20 hours in the library, maybe, because you get a book and you leave. But this was like even when I walk through now, it's like a cathedral of knowledge. Like I would love to be there, and just the ability to learn. Trips you could take with your friend. I never went on student trips. I never went on hey, it's the summer, guys, let's travel. It's like we're all got to get work, and then the side hustle thing. I was a musician for a little bit, and it's like okay, we're doing that, and so as a resource, using those years, I probably would have done differently. I tell people this all the time. Knowing what I know now, I wouldn't have went to college. In terms of because I don't use my degree, I ended up becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But I didn't know myself. When I left, at 17 years old, I did not know who I was.
Yeah.
And when I left school, I did know who I was. So I do credit those 4 years with giving me an identity. But taking from it that the best and greatest investment I got from that college experience was an identity of who I was, then I would have just doubled down on that. I wouldn't have wasted time trying to get those jobs or do the fake networking thing.
But I feel like if you didn't have your story play out the way it started, I don't think you would be sitting in this chair.
No, it's very possible. I mean, Lord knows if I burst off on some of those college parties, I probably would have got myself in trouble. But look, I'm a big believer in whatever's happened couldn't have happened any other way. I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in determinism. I think if you rewind the clock, you put the same person in the same experience, they're going to do the same thing. I do believe this.
Yeah.
So I'm not mourning or lamenting that. I think sometimes I romanticize the idea that for 4 years, because I did get a job at some point. Okay, for 2 years, for an 8-month period of time, with university lectures that probably only take up 6 hours of your week, maybe 8, if that. I had an unlimited amount of time in an institution of higher learning. I went to, the world was there.
Yeah.
To stretch and push and crack the foundations of who I was as a person. And I didn't do that.
But you also said you wouldn't if you could go back, you probably wouldn't do college. So you kind of have like a difference there. It's like,
but I'd probably spend time on campus though. I wouldn't have been part of like the paying of tuition. I would sit in on lectures and I'll do that stuff. But I don't know. And maybe I romanticize the college experience for what Plato originally intended. It is a place for people of incredible curiosity.
But you can still do that now, even without paying tuition.
It's not the same.
You were young back then. That's why.
I think we were all young back then.
Yeah.
Like, when is the last time you were able to change somebody's mind? Somebody with a firmly held idea, they came into the conversation thinking they knew what they were talking about, and you sat an hour with them and they left saying, you know what, you've changed my mind. When's the last time you changed somebody's mind?
I couldn't even recall that, to be honest.
At 17 and 19, we were having our minds changed every day.
Yeah.
There's so much beauty in that. I don't know if I'm being ridiculous. I can't remember the last time I changed somebody's mind.
Yeah.
And I remember in debates and somebody would say, that's a good point.
And it hits you and you see their face and you're like, oh.
No, you can't change people's minds anymore. Why? Because I can't change my mind. Because what I think is how I live. How I live is who I've picked to marry. Who I've picked to marry is who I had my kids with. Who I've had my kids with has to reinforce what I think. You can't change my mind. It's my entire life.
Yeah. It's your identity. It's like who you are. But like as children, we're so flexible. We're so curious. We're so open. And like even as a little kid, like not even college, even as a little kid, you could convince him of anything. You could tell him there's 3 Earths and we're on Earth number 1.
And he'd look into it.
And he'd be like, yeah, I believe that. I believe that.
Look into it, man.
But that's again, like you said, it's the beauty of like being young and like, but now we, as an adult, we've passed that stage. We have the power to convince our younger generation.
Do you?
Yeah, I think so.
When is the last time, then I'm going to do it again. When is the last time you changed somebody's mind?
I mean, like I was a camp counselor. When I was a camp counselor, there were a lot of things that I would talk about with my campers, and a lot of them were very young. Some of them were still in the stage of, not being aware of what the world really is. And there are little things like safety. If you convince them, like, you can't do this because safety is in play, you have to explain it to them with such detail for them to comprehend and to understand. And then they'll finally realize, like, oh, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Now I understand. But I don't think since I was maybe a camp counselor, maybe if I was, in a way, a creative.
Yeah.
There are some people in my life that they'll take my knowledge and my opinion and they'll be like, yeah, you know what, you're right. But I can't sit here and debate with someone about an opinion anymore as strongly as I probably would when I was younger.
I feel like I get my ideas added to.
Yeah.
I think I allow my opinions to stretch or to encompass other thought.
Yeah.
But I can't remember the last time somebody actually, totally, utterly changed my mind.
Yeah.
I came in thinking this. From our conversation, I am leaving now thinking something else. When I was a musician and I used to write songs, I was vulturing my friends' life experiences and then writing about it. And I because I grew up in church, I had always such a strong moralistic point of view that I so enjoyed ripping in half every time I would pen something. Because you never stretch yourself more than when you try and give an excuse to someone you love for something you thought was inexcusable. The first time I remember I had to do it with my dad once, where I love my father, I'll never not love my father. So I have to humanize something I never thought I'd have to humanize. And what the journey you go through to do that. And changing my own mind about what this means. And, but as you get older, and people let you down a different way, or people become firm and they don't have the open-mindedness.
Yeah.
Your mind not being able to be changed is a necessary self-defense mechanism.
Yeah. I mean, that's what they say with old people too. Can't change their mind. Can't teach a dog old tricks.
Yeah.
Like, realistically, I have loads of experiences where I get an epiphany where I'm like, oh my God, like, this needs to change. For example, relationships. I've gone into a couple of relationships that have not at all gone away that I ever thought they would have.
That's the last time you changed your mind. You decided you don't want to be with that guy anymore.
When something happens, you're like, oh, you like realize.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God, like this has to change. I can't stick like this forever. Politics too, like just because I like quite recently diving into all that, you know, I'm very open-minded. So if you tell me something that in my morals, like sit with me correctly, then I agree with it.
But see, look at that initial filter. Like, look what you just said, which I love.
Yeah.
If you tell me something that agrees with my morals. So before you determine the merit, you're trying to see if it landed okay.
Yeah. It landed.
But what if it doesn't? Like, what is something that you morally disagree with? Give me a firm one. I morally disagree with this.
Political wise or what? Anything?
You firmly disagree with it morally.
A good thing, not a good thing, a terrible thing
Sure.
that's happening right now in Toronto. Just like, for example, the construction that's happening.
Okay.
I really disagree how long it's taking.
You disagree how long construction takes?
Yeah.
So you disagree how long construction
Yeah.
takes? Okay. So you want to shorten the time.
Yeah. There are places in the world that take 2 days to finish a highway, to finish a pothole, like China, Shanghai. 2 days.
Does it bother you that you just picked a utilitarian, like a place where like nobody could say don't build the highway?
Yeah, I mean,
Like it's a trade-off. You know what I'm saying?
it does, yeah.
You morally disagree with the time, but would you morally disagree with you having no choice but to see the highway go up?
Yeah, I guess so.
Because the truth is that, and I love when people say, man, you go to Russia, a hospital go up. That's because no one can say no to the hospital going up.
Yeah.
Things happen very fast when nobody gets a voice.
Yeah.
So I think, but see even that in that initial, yeah, like man, there must be a faster way to do it.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you, but it's the balance, right? If we want to give everybody a voice, I guess my thing is this: I will not say everyone should have a voice, but then make my primary concern how long it takes for everybody to talk.
Or to respond.
Because I just said everybody should have a voice.
Yeah.
If I want to, sometimes if you want efficiency, you can't have democracy. I really do believe this. If you want efficiency, you can't have a democracy. But you need democracy because everyone should have a voice, shouldn't they? You
Yeah.
know? So it becomes difficult. But yeah, I just think about those formative years. As a resource, my young mind, my young, shapeable mind, I have since lost. Because so much of what I see, how I see the world, it's not theory anymore. It's not books that I was reading. I've lived some of the stuff I thought about, and it's now firmed me and hardened me in a way where my mind, I know, can't be changed about certain things.
But that's also the experience based off of you being in your youth and you were able to suck in all this knowledge.
Yeah.
Again, it's thrown you back out to who you are now.
It is. But I also think that experience is the worst teacher
So
because the experience has no context but itself.
do you think humans and the way they grow up and mature
Sure.
and all that stuff, do you think it's like a negative thing that we get so close-minded?
Okay. Now we're getting into the weeds. Okay. I appreciate someone's experience. I don't want to sound like a nihilist. I love that people need to have experiences. But when it comes to society, the uniqueness of experience prevents the growth of society. I'll tell you a perfect example. I had a friend of mine, we were having a discussion about global warming. And I said, there's global warming.
Yeah.
Trust me, there's global warming. He said, no, there isn't. I went to Google, we're bringing out articles. I said, look, there's global. I was talking about the melting of the polar ice caps. Look at the weather shifts. You can't tell me that because I went to Miami in the 90s. I've gone now, 20 years later, and it's no hotter. That's my experience.
Yeah.
So you can't tell me. And he was older than me too. So he said, you can't tell.
Yeah.
When you went to Miami, I was just, and it's an experience. Now we're not having a discussion about truth.
Yeah.
Because I can't tell you that I can't tell you that what you're feeling isn't
Yeah.
true.
It's
You've
emotional.
You've killed the conversation.
He connected it to based off of emotional, not logical
It happens
thinking.
an inevitable period amount of time. The first time I went to Orangeville, I'm not going to say the guy's name. First time I went to Orangeville, yes, I was tall. Orangeville at the time, like I said, not that many pigmented people. Guy looked at me and he says, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're so nice." I said, "Why?" He goes, "That hasn't been my experience."
With what, tall people?
Black people.
Oh.
Tall people are so mean.
But yeah, no, but I
But
feel
it's an
like
experience. How do you rob someone of an experience? But it is the worst teacher because it draws on nothing but itself. And I think the greatest opinions require context. Experience is the one opinion driver in human life that has no context.
But if you're thinking and you're talking about experience.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Experience builds a person.
Yes, it does.
And with that person and that experience,
Yes.
it can change a lot of views for a lot of people.
Yes, it can.
So
Permitted, they
big
have the same
influence.
experience.
Yeah. Or not even same experience. They can emotionally connect to that person
Yeah.
based off of that person's experience.
To have a change for themselves?
Yeah.
Most experiential change requires identity. Perfect example. That's how, when you identify with another woman's story, it's because you've had a similar experience.
Or I can emotionally connect to her pain based off of that experience.
Which means that you're having to run a parallel from your experience to pain.
Even just feeling empathy. Just empathy. It's not necessarily based off of experience.
The empathy that I have for people,
Yeah.
I was taught it.
Okay.
I was taught to feel empathy.
So you don't feel empathetic. You were taught to feel empathetic?
As a kid, yeah, you're taught to feel empathetic. So when I was a kid on the playground and I was bigger and stronger and I would take toys from kids that were smaller.
And be gentle?
No, I would take them. I want the toy. I'm taking it. I'd beat kids up and take the toy. My mom had to tell me, this is wrong.
Yeah.
And the reason why this is wrong and why you shouldn't do this is now you're going to go to your room and you're going to be stuck there and you're going to see what it's like that I have power over you. And now I'm withholding something from you. And from this experience and knowledge and knowing how this felt, you have now learned, do not do that to other people. But in its concept, I want the toy, I took it.
Yeah.
Someone had to tell me of what the experience was of the other human, in my opinion. What you say? What you've recently had children?
I understand what you're saying. I think you're right, but I think it is more nuanced. Like, I do think, especially children, can be sort of conditioned to think that anything is normal, unfortunately, and be trained out of having a sense of empathy. I do think inherently people have empathy because we are, if we break it down to like our animal instincts, like we're a communal life form. Like
Even
we like
females.
we like to be in groups. So I think with that comes an inherent sense of empathy for others. But I think the nitty gritty of that can be taught, because when you're talking about, you wanted a toy and took it, that's also sort of an animal instinct.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the point of an organized society.
That's greed.
Yeah, that's greed,
That's
right?
greed.
No, it's not. Oh my goodness.
It's
Okay,
greed.
I'll ask you both this. Do you think people, this is going back to a political argument, shouts out to John Locke and Thomas Hobbes, and shouts out to, early Christian teachings. Are people inherently good or inherently bad?
I'd say humans are, like, there's a scale. I can't
There
say.
isn't. Are people inherently good or inherently bad? Good and bad is not on the scale. We do that to give ourselves forgiveness for our worst desires. Are people inherently good or inherently bad?
I would say more on the bad spectrum.
Oh, see, I would say more on the good spectrum.
Are you insane? You think people are inherently good?
Yeah, I think if you're talking, especially about early Christian teachings, you're talking about a very
Early Christian
limited
teachings say we're all born in sin. Christian teachings say we're all bad.
Yeah, because they have a very limited consensus on what is good and bad.
If humans were morally good, we wouldn't have greed. We wouldn't have selfishness. We wouldn't have like the urge of doing things that isn't morally good. Like those emotions came because we do bad things,
I agree and I disagree, because if you look at like early societies, like before capitalism, if you had, not to say that capitalism is the root of all evil, I'm not
I
saying
know
that,
that's what
but
you think, though.
well, I do, but that's beside the point. They would, banish people who stole or who hoarded resources like food and didn't give it to others,
Yeah.
right? Like they would form, no one told them, you need to form a group of people who respects each other and who shares things and who works together towards communal good.
Yeah.
I'm talking about non-religious societies, so you can't
Yeah.
even say there was a God that came from on high and told them this is what you
They're
have to
just
do
a
to be
natural
good.
desire. We should all live. If we can all live, let's all live.
Right. And this person is infringing on our ability as a group to live a happy, fulfilling, sustainable lifestyle. We're going to, push them out and they'll get eaten by wolves. So I agree with you. Certainly there are people who have the instinct. I think we all have the instinct to be greedy and covetous and all these things. but I don't think that that is intrinsically what we want as people. Like if you look after the media doesn't portray this, but you know, after like natural disasters, there are people who go and loot, but there's also more broadly people who give what they can to their neighbor who is suffering more than they are and form communities.
Yeah.
And
I do agree with with that, because I mean I experienced a hurricane firsthand, and the first day it finished and it ended and the storm calmed down.
yeah.
Me and my mom went out for a drive and we saw exactly what you described. We saw looters go to a pharmacy and loot the pharmacy and, you know, was getting everything they could and breaking in. And, you know, while I was in New York living after the hurricane and I evacuated, my parents stayed on the island to, like, you know, fix the house up. But we also got our friends to come and stay with us because they lost their house. Like what else are they going to do? We, you know, took them in and we had food because we had freezers from the restaurant that we had, you know, so we had, there was good and there was bad.
Yeah.
But that, I feel like that's why I'm trying to say there's a balance to humans and the species we are good and we are bad, but there's not going to be good without bad and there's not going to be bad without good. Like, it's just like, that's who we are.
Okay.
What would you say about humans being bad? Why would you say they're more
I think without taught and learned,
structure?
I think without educated behavior, right? So without instruction, left to their own devices, without instruction and correction, I think people's natural instinct would lead them to more negative choices than positive. I think if you talk to a person, you didn't teach them anything, you put them in a group with another community, and they make 100 choices, I think that over 51 of them would be bad choices that we would consider bad choices. And I say this because, and I don't know if this is taught behavior or learned behavior or not, but I would, and this is why I think this. I live in a society now where a multitude of people that I talk to, their intention is to stop working. That's what they want. When they talk about life, even entrepreneurs, I want to grow a business and I want it to make enough money so I can stop working.
Yeah.
I want to marry a woman and I want her to be rich enough so I can stop working. I want to marry a man. I want him to be rich enough so I can stop working. I want to stop working. I no longer, okay. The moment in your heart you have a desire to live a life that has you stop working is the moment you have shown me you're willing to make bad choices. Because if we're all giving our fair share, you can never stop working.
That's ridiculous.
Brother, for me to want to get to a point where I'm no longer working, someone has to be doing my part.
You're equating working in, again, I'm going to rail against capitalism, but you're equating working in a capitalist society with contributing to your community, to your society.
If I have a plot of land, okay, and I have to, let's go very simple. If I have a plot of land and I have to mow this plot of land, okay, and when I mow this plot of land, I get $1. That dollar is good enough for me to sustain my entire life, okay? We live in a society where inevitably the person plowing that land is going to think, I got to get somebody else to do this. I don't want to do this anymore. This is what people say. I don't want to do this anymore. This part of land that I have to plow and wake up every day and do this and my clothes get there, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to go give Jeremy over there 25 cents to plow my plot of land. I'm going to collect $1. I'm going to give him 25 cents and I'm going to hold the 75. You might say this is capitalism, but capitalism has saved the vast majority of society, because not for capitalism, just the biggest, strongest, most weaponized people would kill and control everything. At least capitalism gives those with intellect an opportunity.
So I think most of the people who talk about wanting to stop working are, you know, John, who sits at a cubicle and types things in, and he makes things appear on a screen that generate wealth for a guy sitting in a penthouse in New York City with 2 yachts and a private jet.
Yeah.
Those are the only people you think talk about stop working?
No, lots of people do, but the vast majority of workers in capitalism are not like, wow, look at the fruits of my labor. I have, you know, I've sowed a garden today so my family may eat.
Yep.
The vast majority of workers in capitalism are, wow, I have generated shareholder value today to no benefit to myself except for the pittance that my overlord has given me. And then they want to stop working because they want to do something with their life that isn't like slaving away at a menial
You
job
are
that
not
gives
trying
them
to
no
get me
purpose.
to believe that this guy wants to stop working so he can go make a garden for his family.
What do you think he's doing then?
I think he wants to stop working. I don't think he wants to work.
Do what?
I think even the farmer.
Right, so what does that person do when they stop working?
They want to experience living their life and doing their hobbies and doing things that make them happy genuinely.
Yeah.
Because the meaning to life to me is not to work, and it's not to work to make money. It's to find something that fills you up and fills your cup, that you are happy and you have a reason to live, where you're like, I want to work so I can work to get out of this, so I can do what I want to do, so I can have enough finances to even start what I want to do, so I can pursue the dreams that I've had, you know. But I understand your scale where like you're kind of categorizing people as, okay, if I don't want to work anymore, I'm going to find someone else to do the job. That's what you're saying. But at the end of the day, you know, this world keeps rotating and people and jobs keep coming in and out. Opportunities keep growing and changing and everything changes. It doesn't stay the same. So if someone takes someone else's job, or if someone doesn't want to work in their job or their position anymore, there's always going to be a replacement.
Why was there slavery? I just want to throw this out there. Why was there slavery? This is a time when people were farming and giving to, you know, no pittance, no masters. Who was the first guy that said, yeah, why did they have slaves? Why did they do that?
So they didn't have to do the menial labor.
It's the same concept.
It's not the same concept.
It is the same concept. But
You're leaving out half the equation.
No, Socrates talked about this. I remember one time Socrates gave it under, people make this an argument for communism, and it's not. Plato's Republic, Socrates is talking to the people. He says, we'll have a city, we're going to have this much, we're going to disperse, everybody's going to have the same thing. And the people come to him and say, your city has no spoils. There's no joy in your city. There's no gold. And he looked at the people and he says, if you want your city to have spoils, you will make your city become feverish. It'll be sick now. Because the moment you want to have a little more or a little different than the guy beside you, you are tapping into the worst part of yourself. And I've never met a person that wasn't in some small way wanting to be an individual. The very pursuit of your individuality is a sign of your inherent evil.
You're using the same argument that people use against social services, which is that people
I hope I'm not doing that. I believe in social
You
services.
say people take advantage of them, which is true. There are certainly, you know, for example, mothers who have a lot of kids
Yep.
and neglect them so that they can make welfare checks.
Yep.
There are also people who are struggling who need welfare checks to be able to get out of a bad situation
Yep.
and make something of themselves.
Yep.
The same way, there are people who want to stop working so that they can exploit others or
Yep.
watch every show on Netflix and do absolutely nothing else with their
Yeah.
life.
Yep.
Similarly, there are people who want to stop working so that they can pour themselves into the lives of the people they love or travel or do things that are fulfilling to themselves
Yep.
and the people around them.
Yeah.
It's like the parable of the fisherman, which, look, a businessman walks by a guy fishing with a line and he goes, oh my gosh, you're a good fisherman. You should hire somebody to fish for you. He goes, why are you fishing? He goes, I'm fishing so I can bring food home for my family. He goes, man, you should hire somebody to do this. He goes, why would I hire somebody to do this? Because if you hire somebody to do this, you can sell your fish at market. Because if I sell my fish at market, what am I going to do? He goes, well, once you sell your fish at market, you could hire more people to come here and fish for you. He goes, okay, if I do that, then what am I going to do? He goes, well, once you have all the people fishing, then you put it together into a big fish conglomerate that you could run, and you'd be selling all the fish in this place. You'd run the fishing industry on the island. He goes, okay, once I run the fishing industry on the island, what am I going to do? He goes, well, then after that, you'd have time to fish and give food to your family.
But that's the whole point.
So
it's a whole cycle.
It's all cyclical, right?
It's a cycle.
So I don't disagree. I think it is all a measure of what you want. I think in the end, and I remember when I heard that, it was so interesting. In the end, I do believe the rich man and the poor man are going to end up doing the same thing. That's the idea. The idea is that the rich man and the poor man, they want to do the same thing.
They want to be fulfilled in life. It's not about working.
Yeah.
It's not about work. It's about a sense of I'm in Zen. I'm in
Yeah. Peace.
peace.
Yeah.
Running back to the argument of whether people are inherently good or inherently bad, which again, it's its own debate, its own discussion. Yeah, the majority of decisions that people make without instruction and education, I do think skew to the negative, only because I think people want ease.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, most of the times doing the right thing costs you something.
Yeah.
And people don't want it to, most of the time doing the right thing costs you something. And people don't want to, naturally, why would I want to do that?
Yeah.
I want it my way. I want my dopamine. I want my release. I want my excitement.
I don't know. I'd argue doing the wrong thing costs something too. If you go back to your example of taking a toy from a kid on a playground, that kid's probably not going to want to be your friend anymore. If you go around taking everyone's toy,
Yeah.
you've lost the ability to form relationships with those kids.
Yeah.
If you share your toy with that kid's probably nice to you the next day.
Yeah.
And now you have a friend.
Yeah, you're rewarded. Good is
very good point.
rewarding, and bad is just bad. Like,
Bad is also
It's
rewarding.
rewarding in its own way.
I'll say this. I think you've made a good argument. I think there's a cost and a reward to
Yeah.
both sides
Yeah.
of the coin. I wouldn't say
Yeah.
one is right. It's just about when you want to pay the piper, when you want to have your moment.
whatever I think in my heart, if what I do, I'm never going to be intentionally bad. At the end of it, it also comes with like, some people can mistakenly think that they're doing good,
Yeah.
but then they're doing bad.
Yeah.
They don't have a sense or a direction of what to think because maybe they weren't taught, maybe based off of experience, stuff like that. So I feel like it's very important when you're looking at saying, hey, humans are bad or humans are good. There is, like I said in the beginning, there is no left and right for humans. There is a scale, and it's whether or not you can like find a middle ground.
We'll leave it at that because back to my point, I'm not quite sure my mind will be changed about this.
See?
I think your mind got changed a little bit.
He's never going to change his mind about anything.